Most people know that trees produce oxygen that we breathe and clean the air by acting as giant filters, removing harmful particles and pollutants. But you may not be aware that trees work just as hard to protect and purify our water sources. For the people of the Techima municipality and its adjoining communities, the Tano River has for centuries been the major source of drinking water for them. Sadly, however, the river is fast drying up as a result of human activities, leading to the felling of trees that provide protection for the Tano River. This development, according to the acting Bono East Regional EPA boss, Anthony Bright Kojodia, serves as a threat to the existence of the Tano River.
Clearly, as you can see, people are farming along the tunnel. And because people are farming along the tunnel, what is happening is that they expose the riparian buffer to a lot of dangers, which is promoting erosion. Beyond that, you can also see that along this particular structure, there have been the use of agrochemicals to particularly control the weeds. What do you realize? At the end of the day, all these things are washed into the river tunnel. And just looking ahead, you can realize that human settlements are not so far from here. And we anticipate that once human settlements are within the riparian zone, there's a possibility of illegal discharge of waste and other things. These are some of the issues or the land use activities within the riparian zone that we think serves as a threat to the Tano River.
With support from the Ghana NAS Limited, steps are however being taken by the Environmental Protection Agency to help save the situation. Safety, Health and Environment Manager of the Ghana NAS Limited, Michael Ohimin, says the move forms part of a major plan to help save the environment, particularly the Tano River.
Embarking on this project is something dear to us as a company. The director, Mr. Obedasante, the general manager, Mr. Kwejo Abuaje, are all into it. We came here ourselves to do some of the planting because we think helping to prevent the tunnel from going out is the main key to sustainability in the Chiman. We can see that the tunnel has a lot of biodiversity. And what is happening currently, people farming along the banks, we are going to have all the species within moving or even some going extinct. So Ghana NAT also helped and said, no, if there is an umbrella, if there is a big canopy that EPA has, why not run under it and also support in our small interest? So that's why we joined them to do these activities.
He however cautioned the general public, most especially farmers, to help in ensuring that trees being planted survive to save the river.
I can plead with the chiefs, I can plead with the people around to at least the riparian buffer should be protected. The trees we are planting, if they can take care of it, though we will be coming around to make sure that they don't die out, they should also help us so that we have these trees becoming a mini forest at least to protect the Tano River from siltation.
As we mark the World Environment Day today, Anthony Dia appealed to all to help keep the Tano River by beating down plastic pollution.
The World Environment Day has its own slogan as what? The F, the only place that we can find ourselves. But the national celebration is we ensure that once we have one F, the only place, we must also ensure that we beat down plastic pollution. So we here are saying that no, Tano is our resource, and because Tano is our resource, let's put in all efforts now to ensure that we protect Tano to secure our future in line with the national celebration and global celebration.
Anna Sabit, Joy News, Techiman.
Thank you so much for staying here on the AM show. I'm Bernice Abubedu Lansa. Earlier, you heard my colleague Benjamin Akako speaking to some specialists when it comes to the issue of flooding here in the country. We're still talking about water, this time though, not causing havoc to us, but the water that serves us possibly going extinct. As you may be aware, water is not an infinite resource. It is finite, and over time we've been encouraged to ensure that our activities do not lead us to a point where we don't have enough water to serve our communities. Well, joining me to have a conversation on how our activities are affecting water in the country is Ben Ampoma. He's former Executive Secretary of the Water Resources Commission. Thank you for your time here this morning, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So we just heard that report put together by one of my colleagues in the regions about how human activities is affecting the Tano River, a major source of water for people within that enclave. I'm sure you may have seen over the years how our activities talk about illegal mining, talk about the use of chemicals in our water and how it affects the quality of water that we have. How would you say we've performed? We just heard about our performance when it comes to dealing with flood issues, and according to the Auditor General's report, we are not doing so well. But let's come to the side of preserving the water that will serve us eventually. How well have we done in that regard?
Well, there's been quite a number of efforts in that regard, but it depends on the area and the issues that are at stake. Like you did mention, like the gentleman also did, there are quite a number of causes in terms of the destruction or the deterioration of our water resources. Of course, we're talking about pollution, which is one. Of course, there are different types of causes: illegal mining, improper disposal of waste, farming along our river bank, industrial discharges, which are not controlled. So there are quite a number of causes. But all in all, the basic thing that we have been able to do or have been able to do is to set the legal framework or the governance structure, which is very, very important. The institutions that are mandated to ensure that we actually put in place measures to control, illegal pollution or the destruction of our water bodies is fundamental and key. Then, of course, we have the issues of training and education, which I might say that the media has been very instrumental in forthcoming and helping in that regard. But all in all, the basic thing that we have not been able to, as it were, in my view, do much has to do with the element of enforcement. And in terms of the enforcement, I'm really looking at it in terms of the judiciary and how to penalize wrongdoers, especially given the legal regime, the fines, the penalties that go with them. That's not really serve as a deterrent now. So for me, that is the area that we need to work very much on.
So we have a challenge where you've mentioned there is lack of enforcement when it comes to the law, and people get away with a lot of things. Let me bring up the issue of a fight against illegal mining. At the time when it started, it appeared that there was a lot of commitment from government, from the media. There's a lot of focus. We even had a task force put in place to ensure that illegal mining was dealt with because it was having a lot of negative impact on our water. And the Ghana Water Company Limited was actually spending more to treat water to serve us than it would have if illegal mining didn't exist. So it appears everybody has gone to sleep. We are back to where we started from. There are reports that illegal mining has resumed in certain areas, and we still have the Ghana Water Company Limited struggling to treat water. In fact, we are told that the request to have our tariffs increased is partly due to that, because they have to spend more treating water. From where you sit as the former Executive Secretary of the Water Resources Commission, have we shown that we really appreciate the essence of water and the fact that it is not finite? And if we are not careful, in fact, we've said in times past that we may start importing water. Do we understand how dire the situation is?
As the country, it depends on who actually, understand or appreciate the essence of water. Of course, we have the pollutants, and we have those who are supposed to do them for.
Sorry, Mr. Mpoma, I'm struggling to hear you. Can you please speak up a bit?
Okay. What I'm saying is that as a country, it is not as if we are not being putting in place or we do not appreciate the essence of water. We do. But the point has to do with how to sustain the measures that we actually put in place. Here. How do we sustain them? How do we integrate them? There is no one measure that can solve them. How do we integrate them to ensure that at least we have people using water as a form of livelihood? Water is supposed to be used for development. We should understand that. Okay. And water is supposed to be used for various purposes for our human existence. We should understand. So, for instance, we cannot say that we should not mine. Yes, we should mine because, and if we talk about mining, for instance, water is the major input or the major input in terms of. So there's no doubt about that. But how to ensure that we use it in a sustainable manner is the crux of the matter. And again, I would emphasize that there is no one measure that we can use with respect to tackling the issue at stake. There's we have to look at it from all angles. Legal, governance, the technology, the technological aspects, all that kind of things. How do we?
Hello?
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please.
So how do we, make sure that we do all these things sustainable? For me, that is the issue. Sometimes we tend to be making progress, and I agree with you to some extent that we tend to be making progress, and then somehow, we tend to some measures do not work. How do we tweak it to make sure that we get it everything? But all in all, we need to get a dedicated way of it.
Mr. Ampoma, let me bring in Mr. Stanley Marty. He is Director of Communications at the GL. Good morning, Mr. Marty. Thank you so much for the program. Hello? Hello, Mr. Marty.
Hi, yes. Good morning, Venison. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining the program. We are back again talking about water, this time around, not with regards to tariffs, but with regards to the quality of water and whether or not, as a people, we understand the importance of not allowing our activities to interfere with nature as we have it. From where you sit, treating water every day, would you say, even if it's the slightest of improvement, let us know. Have you seen any improvement at all in the quality of water you treat before you serve us since our fight against illegal mining started?
Okay, let me assure the entire public of Ghana that any water that flows through our taps meets the best of standards. So before it leaves our treatment plant, then it means that it has attained the Ghana Standards Authority's drinking water standards and that of the WHO drinking water standards. And I always say, and I must say again, that the Ghana Standards Authority's standards is far higher than WHO. And as a company, we ensure that we even do better than the Ghana Standards Authority standards for drinking water. So the water that flows through our pipelines meets the best of standards. In any case, we are seriously challenged with the pollution of our water bodies, as we've been saying all along, and Dr. Ben Ampoma has also been saying. And it is such that we do our best to treat it to meet the standards that I've just mentioned. But if at a point we are unable to meet the standard, it means that the water has reached an untreatable stage, and then we shut down the treatment plant. So there's been several occasions where we have had to shut down our treatment plant because we can't treat the water to meet the standards for drinking.
Mr. Martin, I just want to know what you mean when you say untreatable stage. What do you mean? What in the water makes you determine that it has reached an untreatable stage?
Okay, so even with raw water that is clear, there could be some compounds that we can't see with the naked eye. Okay, and all those things will have to be cleared before it is sent out for consumption. So you can imagine the sort of water that you are showing on the screen now, highly colored. Okay, so that one you can even see the physical eye that it is not good for, it can't be consumed. So there are a lot of compounds in water, and in the treatment process, we need to get rid of all of them. In the process of getting rid of all these compounds and all these whatever unwanted pathogens or enzymes or whatever bacteriological stuff that we need to get out of them, if in the process of treating the water, what happens is that we lose some of the water because of this death. So we add some chemicals, it will coagulate all the filth and everything, and then we'll have to dislodge. So there are process losses in the course of treating water. Now, if your process losses go beyond 50 to 60%, then it is not even economically prudent for you to treat the water, because it means that you'll be using a lot of chemicals and you'll be using energy to abstract the water, and you have to lose a chunk of the water. So beyond that limit, it means that it is not feasible for us to waste our time and energy and everything to treat the water. So we'll stop at that point. There are certain times where even separate the filth from the water, it's impossible. Okay, at that point, we can't treat the water, or it is not feasible or economically prudent for us to treat the water. So at that point, we'll shut down the treatment plant. So there are standard operating procedures that we use, and based on the limits within the SOPs, we shut down the plant. And it has happened several times. And we've been telling the general public that if it goes that way for a very long time, we'll have our treatment plant there, but we can't treat the water. This year, we have had to shut down the Boise for well over a month, and Sekeli Takwadi was without water. There's been several times when we had to shut down our Bosu treatment plant and our Konogo treatment plant and other treatment plants within the country. Otasu in Obuasi. I mean, these are just a few of the treatment plants that I can mention for now. But it happens all the time, educating the general public. But it's like we can't stop them.
Mr. Mate, so I was finding out from you, since we started the fight against illegal mining, would you say that you have seen any improvement in the water that you have to treat?
That is so now you are talking about the raw water quality.
Exactly.
Anytime, for instance, when we had Galamstop, and then when we had the media also get involved, or anytime we get external people to support the fight against Galamsey, it ceases for a while and we see improvement. But anytime we go to rest, then it happens again. The Ghana Water Company Limited, for the past 15 years, has never relented in any way in fighting the menace. Unfortunately, we do not have the capacity to meet them good for good. So what happens is they will come us and we are forced to withdraw. The mandate is for law enforcement agencies to do, but is it sustainable? So between us and the Water Resources Commission, we resort to educating the people and empowering, no, don't let me use the word empower, but like making the indigenes understand that apart from affecting the water bodies that we all need to treat and to consume, it is also affecting their domestic economy. So we all must fight against the menace.
So have you seen an improvement or not?
Currently, there isn't. But like I said, anytime there's a real fight, we see improvement. Okay. Which means that if we are able to sustain the fight, then it means that we'll see quality in the improvement of our raw water.
In 2007, we drafted a national water policy. And I just want to find out from you, since that time in 2007, have we revised the policy, or we are still trying to implement what is contained in that document?
Yeah, the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources are in the process of doing that, and I'm sure within a very short time we'll come out with a revised version of the water policy.
Interesting. So before you joined the program, I was mentioning that one of the reasons given for the increase in tariffs, the request to have water tariffs increased, had to do with the cost of production, and the quality of water you have to treat is also part of that problem. If you can just tell us where we are now with regards to the issue of tariffs. We know that the PURC went through a certain process, but do you have any indication that your request is going to be met?
For now, we can't tell, but we are still in the process of engaging with our stakeholders. Last week we were in the Volta region, and in the past 1 month we've been meeting all stakeholders, and the TUC, the parliamentarians, even beauticians and hairdressers and barbering association. I mean, all associations and all the stakeholders that we can think of. We have been meeting with them. This week we'll be in the Volta region, and then next week we'll be in the Ashanti and then the Northern regions. We are hopeful that we'll finish before the beginning of July, and then PURC has promised to announce around that time. So we are just hoping to hear from them. But for now, we can't say anything at all. There hasn't been any indication whether it will be granted or not. Maybe the PURC will be in the best position to do that.
Mr. Mate, earlier in the show we were discussing the impact of floods. I'm just wondering if floods in any way affect the job that you do in providing potable water to Ghanaians.
For now, okay, I'll say that when there are floods, we get our raw water becoming more turbid. So maybe it affects us that way. But we haven't had any flooding that could, let's say, affect our pumps and all that. I think 3 years ago, we had some flooding in the Upper West region in our Jambuzi water treatment plant, where our treatment plant got flooded and then we lost some property. But we have worked on that one, and since that time, it hasn't occurred again. But that is the only challenge that we've had, if I've answered the question very well. But if it's the treatment process, it means the only challenge, the fact that when they are flooding, we get high turbidity water, which makes treatment expensive.
Engineer Mahama spoke earlier to my colleague Benjamin Akakpo, and well, let me just maybe term it a bit of advice for the Ghana Water Company Limited, and he was mentioning how your pipes are laid across the cities, and sometimes there are concerns that it goes across the drains, and so when there's flood and the filth and the plastic waste is moving along with the flow of the water, it gets trapped in the pipes, and then it causes a bit of an obstruction to the flow of water. Let me just find out from you, do you have any of such pipes damaged as a result of the flooding? And apart from that, do you also receive complaints about how these pipes affect people or residents living in the various communities when it comes to the flow of flood waters?
Okay, so when it comes to our main pipelines, let's say our distribution pipelines and our transmission pipelines, if it has to cross, let's say, some river or some water body, what we do is to have a panel by the bridge, or by a panel, and then create a bridge for the pipeline to be on. So it doesn't really affect it like that. And where we have some challenges is when people lay shallow service lines into their homes. Now, we are supposed to go to a certain depth when we are laying pipelines, our service pipelines. But when people do illegal connections, they do not go that depth. And then anytime we have erosion, it washes away some of these small service pipelines. So that is where we have a bit of challenge. So what we do is that after every rains, we get our people within their communities to check and to let everybody know that if there's any thing of the sort within your community, report to us, and then we'll have it rectified immediately. But we don't have a lot of these things occurring, but they are bound to happen. And when they do happen, we have them fixed immediately and then give them the right depth so that it doesn't reoccur. So erosion really affects us, and erosion only occurs when we have set flooding and heavy rains.
I'll be speaking to another panelist on the program now, but let me just find out from you, apart from having mud and chemicals in water, do you have a challenge with plastic waste also?
Yes, for instance, currently the sea is polluted. And we have struck the sea for treatment as well. So we are faced with that challenge where almost every week or every 2 weeks, the desalination plant will have to shut down for a day or two to get rid of the debris that may have blocked the abstraction line. So we are faced with that challenge in the sea. It is strange, isn't it? But if you drive along the coast of Accra, you realize that the sea is polluted with plastic bags and plastic bottles. It is also occurring in some areas like in Sawam, because a lot of people dump into the water body, and then it affects us at our extraction point. The other aspect is also industrial effluent. And let me also say this, that every drain in this country ends up in a water body or in the sea, or in the water body and then eventually into the sea. So when people throw refuse from their homes, garbage and stuff into drains because it is raining, they should know that it will end up in our water bodies, which will affect us when we have to treat. So it really affects us. But I've mentioned the sea because it is strange. If you look at the size of the sea and we are able to pollute it in Ghana, then we have a serious challenge. And I think we all need to do that education so that citizens of Ghana would desist from such antisocial behavior.
Let me bring in Dr. Dixon Amwakukisi. He's MP for Anyaso Tom and Vice Chair of the Parliamentary Committee on Water and Sanitation. Good to have you here. The Parliamentary Select Committee on Environment, rather. Thank you for your time here, sir. Now, we've been hearing from Mr. Ben Ampoma, who is former Executive Secretary, Water Resources Commission, and Mr. Stanley Mate on the challenge we have in this country when it comes to water and having access to potable water. For Mr. Ben Ampoma, he thinks that our laws aren't being enforced properly. From where you sit as a legislator, and also the Vice Chair of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Environment, would you agree that we aren't doing enough when it comes to the legal aspect, the enforcement of the law aspect with regards to people who pollute our waters?
It's Atomako.
Yes, sir.
Atomako, yes. And then one key thing, I think this week is also World Oceans Day, which makes this topic very appropriate. With law enforcement, there's a very huge aspect of awareness and making sure that people understand the law. And I think we cannot just look at it from, giving fines or tickets or arresting. We also need to look at it from the other aspect of mass education of the public. And need I say, constant reminders. Unfortunately, we're in a country where basically a lot of our laws are in the books, but not as it is implemented or enforced. And the awareness is also not, very strong. And I would hope that as we do this, we embark on that journey of reminding and retraining or informing our citizenry. And I'll use this as you know, a legislative person to say that our laws are only as good as we practice them. You know, so if we're not practicing the laws as in enforcing or educating the citizenry, then it's not as effective.
Let's put the two on a scale. Educating and enforcement. Would you say we have balanced these two enough?
Not enough. Not enough.
So where would you say which side would you say the pendulum swings more to, education or enforcement?
I believe largely in education, because that can alter people's behavior, and that is where you know, in economics we say nudging, and that gives us a better outcome when people actually understand the implications, the negative impact of what they are doing. I think when we do that, without a law enforcement person there, individuals will know that they have to act right. It's almost like us saying that, you know, Steve looks all over and forgets to look up, as in look up to God, you understand? So the eyes will not always be there. The enforcement team will not necessarily always be there. But when a driver knows that if he goes through a red light, he is likely to get into an accident, he is more likely to, you know, stay when it is red. I hope you get where I'm coming from.
I'm happy you brought in this example of road safety, because clearly in this country, it appears to be the opposite. Because we focus more on education, yet we are not seeing a change in behavior. And that's why I was asking you where the pendulum swings most to and what the situation should rather be. Because you talk about road accidents, and I sit here every day, we go through the statistics, we do the education. You still don't see a change in behavior. It's the same with water, talking about illegal mining and how it affects us as a...
But the thing is, mercury in our water systems, half of the people using mercury are clueless as to the impact on their own lives, you know. And let me just say this. In my interviews with some of the people who handle mercury, one, they even doubt the education you're giving them because of you know, they don't have that grounding. And it's very painful. I mean, when you still with a young man who plays with mercury doing mining, and you try to explain to them the implications, and they just can't appreciate it, whether in local dialect or in English or any dialect they understand. And what it means is that we still need to do more. I mean, you put yourself in a classroom as a teacher, you teach your students, they are not getting it, you have to teach them again, they are not getting it. If you resort to just lashing them, that is not the best solution. But it is important. Some people wake up after a lash. And what it is that some people wake up when the fines are working, when the appropriate judgments are made. And we need the two, but I'm more inclined to believe that a lot of people are ignoramus. They are very ignorant about the implications. The fact that when you dump things into the water body, you are the same individual who's going to drink from that water. And the fact that...
Doc, sorry to interject again. So the example you gave of a student in the classroom and what we are talking about now aren't entirely the same, are they? Because for a student who is sitting in the classroom, the repercussion of their action, or they not understanding the subjects that the teacher is teaching, may not necessarily have direct impact on other persons in the classroom. But you think about the person who is putting mercury into our water bodies and how it's going to affect all of us. The person who is dumping rubbish in the drain while it's raining, and how it's going to affect all of us. So I clearly get your point about education and enforcement. But what I'm finding out from you is that, do you think we have even done enough when it comes to enforcement? And whether experiences over time haven't taught us that education doesn't seem to solve our problems as we would want it to?
We can up the, the fines. It's also very important. But I think I'm being a bit less patronistic, in the sense that I think that, unfortunately, the average citizen's understanding of the impact or implications are quite low. And it's just unfortunate. Elsewhere you have people championing recycling. Elsewhere you have ordinary citizens championing, water quality related initiatives. And may I add that this challenge is not necessarily only a governmental thing, and I would encourage many more people to take it up on their own, to educate landlord associations and all kinds of groupings in this country, so that, this practice of dumping into drains, which is quite sickening. I've seen videos, I've seen stories, is quite sickening. And I don't know where we copied this habit from. And the painful thing is, it's not plantain that they are putting in, it's things that are not biodegradable to begin with. And it ends up choking, downstream and still affecting them either way. So and another key thing is how we develop or plan our cities. Because yesterday I had a heated argument about the fact that elsewhere you don't even see the drain to let alone put in something. Everything is covered. You understand? So from a city planning standpoint, if the human beings are still behaving like animals, forgive me, then those who plan the city, we ought to work or design a city whereby drains are all covered and people don't have direct access to drains to dump into them. It's ridiculous, but our behavior sometimes need to inform those who make the planning. And I think that until we get our planning right, as the kind of human beings we have in our country, and how we think and how we rationalize, I think ultimately we ought to plan our cities well and have covered drains. And I don't think anybody will go necessarily, break the covering to dumping. Then that will be a serious offense that may warrant 5 years imprisonment, you understand? So I really think that ultimately, if the people are not behaving appropriately, then we need to map out a different strategy of planning well so that people don't dump. Once it's covered, they cannot dump. And these are some of the things that, as a nation, we need to take on boldly and revisit how we've done our engineering in the city. So that is my 2 cents with regards to this.
Okay, so yesterday was World Environment Day, and the theme was
One Earth.
Only One Earth. And it really hit me just getting onto the UN's website and the little write-up they have under that theme. And I'm going to read it because it leaves a lot to think about. In the universe are billions of galaxies. In our galaxy are billions of planets. But there is only one Earth. Let's take care of it. Let me come to you, Mr. Ben Ampoma, because we appear to be a nation of advocacy. We like advocating things a lot. So we've just had the MP say, we need to do something about our structures. We don't need to have open drains. But I'm asking myself, beyond the talk, what can we do? Can we have a law that says, for example, if any civil engineer or if any body belonging to a local assembly oversees a project that doesn't have a covered drain, there should be something done to them? Or can we take it beyond the advocacy and education?
Just before I respond, can you let me make a conversation with Stanley on the matter of flood affecting?
Sure. Go ahead, sir. Sir.
Yeah, I want to stress that particular point, that we normally seem to miss the fact that flooding does not occur only in the urban center or urban cities, and that it also affects our rural communities and small towns. So if you take water supply, we have our point source systems, boreholes, and then small town community systems. And indeed, flooding affects some of these water supply systems in these areas. And indeed, because of that, they don't use their point sources like facilities like boreholes, small handheld wells, and small town systems that have been put in place. So I just wanted to draw our minds to that. And indeed, one of the solutions that, in my view, and somewhere have been done, is to develop what we call the flood early warning risk maps, or flood risk maps, to, as it were, map out areas within the country where we have potential risks in terms of flooding. And based on that, it will inform our spatial planning and also how we actually, site our infrastructure, especially with regards to water supply. That is the point that I wanted to make. Now, to come back to your question, that can we go beyond the issue of advocacy? Yes, we can. And like I did mention, there's no one solution. We can never have one solution. We should have it in terms of an integrated way. One other thing, in terms of governance, how institutions will work, collaboration is quite important. We should not have, what somebody would call silos. We shouldn't be working in silos. Institutions, it has to do with EPA, it has to do with the media, it has to do with the school systems, education, the judiciary, whatever. We should work in an integrated and collaborative manner and not work in silos. Otherwise, it will never work. And again, we should also be mindful of our traditional system and some of these practices that hitherto were quite okay. They were good. They were not put in place just for the matter of it, but they were able to shape our opinion and the way that we treat our natural resources, be it water, be it oil.
Hello, Mr. Ampoma.
Oh. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, much better now.
Yeah, that's right. So, in my some of the practices either should be near to our benefit in terms of how we. All in all, I would say we should look at it in an integrated manner. We should work in a collaborative and coordinated manner, all institutions, and that all the measures that we put in place, we should do it in that way moving forward.
Thank you so much for your time. Mr. Ben Ampoma is former Executive Secretary of the Water Resources Commission. And I'll just take your final words, Mr. Stanley Marty. I'll come back to you later, Dr. Dixon Atumakukusi. But let me take your final words, Mr. Stanley Marty. He's Director of Communications at the Ghana Water Company Limited. I always like to say this because without sounding alarmist, it appears that in this country, we have a lot of conversations about things, but see very little results at the end. How confident are you that in a year's time, when we're talking about World Environment Day, we would be talking about progress instead of coming back to the same old problems that have existed since Adam, really?
That has always been my prayer. But unfortunately, we get back to the same thing. Let me cite an example. You know, every year we've been talking about people living downstream the Weija Dam and the challenges that the flooding poses to them. And our expectation is that after they face all the dangers, they will evacuate the area and never come back. But it is strange that they rather put up more structures here on, you know. And so I'm wondering, we've been talking about the municipal assembly ensuring that building permits are not given, or people are not allowed to even build within the buffer zone for the course of the river. But we still see new structures springing up every time. So I'm wondering whether this can either materialize. And I only pray that we'll be talking about progress rather than going back to the same issues over and over again. Last year and then last 2 years, I told a few media men that I'm not sure I'll be talking about the Weija issues again, because I don't know how to describe the situation. I don't know what I can say again. I don't know anything new that can add to what I've been adding. And so this year, I've actually refused to speak about that issue. And so I hope that they will learn what they have to learn and then desist from that attitude. And same goes to all of us. We need to be thinking about progress other than going back to complaints every time and then thinking about what we can do, and we try and it doesn't work, or we try and then the same recalcitrant people go around the issues and give us more challenges. We need a sustainable solution to the problem. Maybe this year we should give ourselves the opportunity to come out with a strategy that must be a final one, and then we continue with it. But we have tried almost everything and it is not working. And if, for instance, we've had a workable solution, but if we haven't implemented it effectively, maybe we need to do it this time so that we will not go back to the same issues again. We have told the general public that with the tariff proposals that we have given out this year, all things being equal, that proposal is accepted. Between 2026 and 2030, we should be able to have 100% access to water in Ghana. But if the proposal is given, okay, and we do whatever is expected of us so that we could have 100% access, but then the raw water is unavailable, then it means that we're to square one. And if we really want us to have, if we really wish that we're going to have 100% access to water in Ghana, then one major aspect of the equation should be the management of our water bodies. Now, one other aspect is that our tariffs are also going up mainly because of the cost of production. And the cost of production is high as a result of the very bad quality raw water that we have. So if we are able to manage our water bodies very well, then we could have a lower cost of production, which will impact positively on our tariff. So we also have to look at that as well, so that if we manage our water bodies very well, we're getting more water into the system, and then not only getting more water, but at a lower cost, because the tariff will be lower. So I really wish all of us well, and we have to take some of these things seriously. Other than that, posterity will never forgive us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, Director of Communications at the GWCL, Stanley Marty. Let's end this conversation with you, Dr. Dixon Atumaku-Kusi. You're a Vice Chair of the Parliamentary Committee of Environment. And I'd just like us to end on one of the points raised by Mr. Marty, which has to do with the Weija situation. And yesterday, I know people, my producer had to stay in traffic for about 4 hours. Beyond those who live in the area that will be flooded when the dam is spilled, there's a general flooding situation in that area. We know if you cross Weija moving into Kasfa, those who live on the ridge, there have been cracks. There are concerns of a possible landslide or a possible disaster occurring. But we still see the people there, they're still buildings springing up. You are with the Environment Committee. Is this on your table at all? Is it something you're looking at? If not, once you've heard it on this platform, what can you do to ensure that we don't have a situation on our hands in the coming days? Hello, Doc.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes. In all of these discussions and conversations, there's one key thing that is missing out. One, the climate change is upon all of us. And if you check carefully, the volumes of water coming down has increased. I mean, we've all been in Accra, and this time round, the frequency, the duration, and the volumes are increasing. And in as much as this is happening, and we are vulnerable because of our, poor state in terms of infrastructure, we need to really take this serious. We'll be much, much impacted by climate change than the average Western nation. Speaking of Weija is very close to my constituency, and I have first-hand experience in terms of the flooding on that stretch leading up to Kaswa, and it is serious. I think that all drivers, need to be mindful once it starts raining, not to even make an attempt to drive that path. I really think that should be one of the things we need to signal, that people do not attempt. Many cars have actually been broken down by the fact that they go through a huge volume of water. Yes, environmental is very related, and that goes into the domain of EPA, because as you well are aware, EPA approves, are supposed to, do the appropriate thing and approve whether the siting of a property is appropriate in terms of the protection of land and also protection of property and human. And I think that the EPA arm of government, or shall I say the EPA agency, needs to be emboldened and as it is supported in executing their mandate in terms of helping with the approval for building permits. And you are right when you talk about the constant flooding of the Weija path, and I think that huge drains, not the kind of drains we see currently, will help us. It's almost like a river, a path of a river, and we're using very small, narrow gutters to solve this problem. And I really think that as a nation, we need to address this, and it will need heavy investment, not the feeder road, urban road type of investment. We're talking about a heavy drain storm, project, which are well in the millions of euros to really solve the Weija floods, or shall I say the Kaswa.
So looking at the situation, the siting of buildings causing the environment, what will your committee be doing in terms of writing to the appropriate quarters on what should be done as a matter of urgency?
Well, I'm with the president on his point that people who build in waterways ought to be evacuated and the buildings brought down. And I really think that the president is very right about that. And the enforcement bit, the municipal chief executives or district chief executives need to take that bold step and make sure that, one, we're not adding on to the number of houses in waterways. Two, we are clearing houses, offices, or structures that are in waterways.
And if they fail to do that?
If they fail to do that, I think the president was very clear that if he finds out that you are not taking the necessary action, he is much obliged to withdraw you as a municipal chief executive. And I think and know that he's very strong and firm about this. And I'm sure, who knows, in the next foreseeable weeks, one of our municipal heads might be an example, for others to know that the president is very serious, because he was very, very serious and very, very upset about the current situation.
I appreciate your time this morning, Dr. Dixon Adumaku-Kisi, is MP for Anyaso Tum and Vice Chair of the Parliamentary Committee on Environment. And, well, I'd just like to pause here for us all to think. Think about 20, 30 years from now, what it will be like in Ghana when we talk about water on both fronts, on the flooding front and on access to potable water. Will we be proud of the actions we've taken today? Or would we wish that we had done something earlier? Think about that 18-year-old girl who lost her life yesterday when her slipper fell in the drain and she was picking it up. She was swept away and she died. Think about that other one who was electrocuted about a week ago when there was also flooding in Accra. Think about the many lives that have been lost due to floods in this country. It could be anybody. This is an emergency, and we all need to be upset about the situation until we see a change. Well, talking about water, we all know it's life, right? It regulates our body temperature, keeps us alive and kicking. Awake is premium purified water treated through strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes us better. Well, there's the perfect size for every occasion, the 330, 500 ml to fit your pockets and bags, 750 ml for heavy drinkers, and 1.5 liters for those who always want more. We have also introduced a special 19-liter jars for offices and homes. Now, you just need to stay awake with Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. Come on, grab a bottle of Awake Water and get quality hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. It's produced by Kasapreko. For bulk purchases, please call 026-235-1251, 026-235-1251. We'll be back to take your comment on all that we've been discussing, the Auditor General's report, focusing on infrastructure that we've put together to fight flooding, and also about how our own activities are disturbing water and access to potable water in this country. Benjamin will join me for that. Do stay.